My wife kicked me out for her boss. Then I discovered he was buying her an engagement ring with MY money. She thought I'd just disappear quietly. Wrong. I hired my ex-military buddy, froze all our accounts, and systematically destroyed both their careers. The revenge was so brutal. Even I felt sorry for them. Almost. My name is Francis Holbrook. I'm 40 years old, and I work as a safety inspector on oil rigs across Texas and Louisiana. It's demanding work that takes me away from home for weeks at a time, but it pays well enough to give my family a comfortable life. Or at least, that's what I thought I was doing. I met Melinda 8 years ago at a barbecue joint in Houston. I was coming off a 3-week stint on a platform in the Gulf, tired as hell, but craving some real food. She was there with her girlfriends, celebrating something at work. What caught my attention wasn't just that she was beautiful, though she definitely was, but the way she carried herself. Confident, smart, the kind of woman who knew what she wanted. We started talking about everything and nothing. She told me she worked in marketing for a tech company, and I found myself genuinely interested in hearing about her projects. Most people glazed over when I mentioned my job, but Melinda asked real questions about safety protocols and offshore life. That night stretched into hours of conversation that felt like minutes. 3 years of dating later, we decided to tie the knot. The wedding was everything Melinda had dreamed of. Her parents made sure of that. They'd always been generous with their money, but what they did after the ceremony floored me completely. Melinda's father, Robert, pulled us aside as the reception was winding down. He handed her a small envelope with a serious expression that made me think something was wrong. "Honey," Robert said to Melinda, "your mother and I have been planning this for years. We wanted to give you and Francis the best possible start." Inside the envelope was a deed and a set of keys. They bought us a house. Not just any house, but a beautiful 4-bedroom place in one of Houston's better neighborhoods. Fully paid off, no mortgage, no strings attached. I was speechless. In my line of work, I met plenty of guys who'd been grinding for decades just to afford a decent place. And here I was being handed the keys to a dream home before I'd even had a chance to properly prove myself as a husband. "This is incredible," I managed to say to Robert. "I don't know how to thank you. Just take care of my daughter," he replied with a firm handshake. "That's all the thanks I need." Those first 2 years in that house were probably the best of my life. Melinda and I fell into a rhythm that worked perfectly. When I was home between rig assignments, we'd spend time fixing up the place, hosting dinner parties, talking about her future. When our daughter Sophia was born, that house truly became a home. Sophia changed everything for the better, at least initially. Watching Melinda become a mother was incredible. She was natural at it, patient, and loving in ways that made me fall in love with her all over again. Our little girl had her mother's dark hair and my stubborn streak, which became apparent early when she refused to sleep through the night for the first 6 months. But somewhere around Sophia's 2nd birthday, things started shifting in ways I couldn't quite put my finger on at first. The changes in Melinda started subtly, like a slow leak in a pressure valve that you don't notice until the whole system starts failing. At first, I chalked it up to her getting more serious about her career. Hell, I respected that. A woman with ambition was one of the things that attracted me to her in the first place. She'd started working longer hours at the tech company, taking on bigger projects that required more of her attention. When I'd come home from a 3-week rig assignment, instead of the warm welcome I used to get, I'd find her hunched over her laptop at the kitchen table, barely looking up when I walked through the door. "Hey baby, I'm home," I'd say, setting my gear bag down. "Oh, hi Francis," Melinda would respond without taking her eyes off the screen. "Sorry, I'm in the middle of something important. Can we catch up in a bit?" That bit started turning into hours, then entire evenings. When I tried to tell her about what happened on the rig, the close calls, the guys I worked with, the storms we weathered, she'd give me these distracted nods like she was listening, but I could tell her mind was elsewhere. The real shift happened when she got promoted to senior marketing director. Don't get me wrong, I was proud of her. She'd worked hard for that position, and the pay bump was nothing to sneeze at. But with the promotion came responsibilities that seemed to consume her completely. "I need to travel more now," Melinda announced one evening while I was giving Sophia her bath. "Regional conferences, client meetings, strategy sessions. It's part of the job at this level." "How much more?" I asked, helping Sophia splash around in the bubbles. "Maybe once or twice a month, sometimes for a few days at a time." I felt a knot form in my stomach, but I pushed it down. My job already took me away from home plenty. If Melinda was traveling too, when would we actually be together as a family? What about Sophia? I asked. We can't both be gone at the same time. We'll figure it out, Melinda said dismissively. My mom can help when you're on the rigs. The first few business trips seemed legitimate enough. She'd send photos from conference rooms and hotel lobbies, complain about boring presentations and bad conference food. But gradually, those updates became less frequent. When I'd call her hotel room at night, she often wouldn't answer, claiming later that she'd been in late meetings or networking events. Meanwhile, when I was home, Melinda seemed increasingly irritated by the normal chaos of family life. Sophia's typical 2-year-old behavior, the tantrums, the mess, the constant need for attention, appeared to grate on her nerves in ways it never had before. Can you please keep her quiet? Melinda snapped one Saturday morning when Sophia was playing loudly with her toys. I'm trying to prepare for a presentation. She's just being a kid, Mel. I replied, picking up our daughter. Maybe we could all go to the park later. I can't. I have work to do. It was always work. Everything revolved around her job, her meetings, her projects. The woman who used to ask me detailed questions about my day now seemed annoyed when I tried to share anything about my life offshore. The first major warning bell went off during Thanksgiving of that year. We'd always spend the holiday with Melinda's parents, and it was usually one of our best family times. But this year felt different from the moment we walked through their door. Melinda was glued to her phone throughout dinner, claiming she was dealing with a crisis at work that couldn't wait until Monday. Every few minutes, she'd step outside to take calls, leaving me to make conversation with her parents while Sophia played with her toys. Is everything all right with Melinda? Robert asked quietly when she disappeared for the 4th time during dinner. Work's been demanding lately, I said, not wanting to worry him. She got a big promotion. I understand demanding work, Robert replied, but family comes first, especially during holidays. When we got home that evening, I decided to address it directly. Mel, your dad was concerned today, I said while she was getting ready for bed. So am I. You were on your phone more than you were with us. It's temporary, Francis, Melinda snapped. You of all people should understand what it's like to have work responsibilities. My work doesn't follow me to family dinners. That's because your work is different. Mine requires constant connectivity. The conversation ended there, but something in her tone bothered me. There was a defensiveness that hadn't been there before, like she was protecting something rather than just explaining her job demands. Things got worse over the next few weeks. Melinda started taking calls in the garage or going for walks when her phone rang. When I'd ask who called, she'd give vague answers about colleagues or clients. The woman who used to share every detail of her workday now acted like it was classified information. One evening, while Melinda was supposedly on a conference call upstairs, Sophia came running to me crying. Daddy, I need Mommy, she sobbed. I carried her upstairs to find Melinda's office door locked. I knocked softly. Mel, Sophia needs you. I'm in an important meeting, Francis. Can you handle it? I could hear voices through the door, but something sounded off. The tone was too casual, too friendly for a business call. And was that laughter? Come on, sweetheart, I said to Sophia. Let's get you some water. As we walked away, I heard Melinda's voice drop to almost a whisper. Whatever conversation she was having, she definitely didn't want us to hear it. That night, after Sophia was asleep, I tried to bring it up again. Who were you talking to earlier? I asked as casually as I could. Team members. We're working on a major project launch. Sounded pretty relaxed for a work meeting. Melinda's eyes flashed with irritation. Are you monitoring my calls now? I'm just trying to understand why you're working 18-hour days. Because this is what success looks like, Francis. Maybe if you understood ambition beyond just climbing oil rigs, you'd get it. That stung. She'd never dismissed my work like that before. After that confrontation, Melinda started working even later and traveling more frequently. What used to be twice-monthly trips became weekly departures. She'd leave on Monday morning and return Thursday night, sometimes Friday. When I'd ask about her schedule, she'd rattle off city names and client meetings so quickly it was hard to keep track. I'll be in Dallas Monday through Wednesday, then Austin Thursday for a strategy session, she'd say while packing her suitcase with more care than I'd seen her put into anything in months. That's a lot of travel for regional work, I observed. The company's expanding. These are high-priority accounts. I started paying more attention to the details. The clothes she packed seemed too nice for business meetings. The attention she paid to her appearance before these trips was meticulous. New perfume, fresh manicures, outfits I'd never seen before. Meanwhile, our home life continued deteriorating. When Melinda was around, she seemed impatient with everything: Sophia's chatter, household decisions, even simple conversations about her day. "Can we talk about this later?" became her standard response to almost everything I brought up. "When is later, Mel?" I asked one evening after she dismissed my attempt to discuss Sophia's upcoming preschool enrollment. "When I'm not dealing with 15 other things at once." But even when she wasn't working, she wasn't really present. She'd sit with us during dinner, but spend most of the time checking her phone. When I tried to engage her in conversation about Sophia's development or our plans for the weekend, she'd give distracted responses that made it clear her mind was elsewhere. The physical distance between us was becoming just as noticeable as the emotional distance. We'd always been an affectionate couple, but now Melinda seemed to flinch when I tried to put my arm around her or give her a kiss. When I'd suggest we spend time together after Sophia went to bed, she'd claim she was too tired or had more work to finish. One night, I woke up around 2 in the morning to find Melinda's side of the bed empty. I went looking for her and found her in the kitchen, phone pressed to her ear, speaking in hushed tones. "I know. I miss you too," I heard her say. When she noticed me standing there, she quickly ended the call. "Work emergency?" I asked. "Client on the West Coast. Time zone issues." Sounded pretty personal for a client call. "You must have heard wrong. I'm exhausted. Let's go back to bed." But I hadn't heard wrong, and we both knew it. I decided to take a more systematic approach to figuring out what was really going on. Working on oil rigs teaches you to pay attention to details that others might miss: a loose bolt, a pressure reading that's slightly off, anything that could signal trouble. I started applying that same attention to Melinda's behavior. The breakthrough came on a Tuesday evening when Melinda was supposedly on another conference call in her office. Sophia had fallen asleep in my arms while we were watching cartoons, and I was carrying her upstairs to bed when I heard Melinda's voice through the door. "I can't wait to see you tomorrow," she was saying, her voice soft and intimate. "I've been thinking about our last trip all week." I froze on the staircase, Sophia still sleeping against my chest. "No, Francis doesn't suspect anything," Melinda continued. "He's been so busy with his rig schedule that he barely notices when I'm gone." My blood ran cold. I carefully carried Sophia to her room, tucked her in, and then stood in the hallway listening to more of the conversation. "The Houston account meeting is just our cover story," Melinda laughed quietly. "We'll have the whole weekend to ourselves." When the call ended, I quickly made my way back downstairs and pretended to be cleaning up Sophia's toys. Melinda emerged from her office 20 minutes later, looking relaxed and happy. "Good call," I asked, testing her. "Productive. We're making real progress on the Henderson project." Another lie. She was getting better at them, which told me this had been going on longer than I'd realized. The next day, while Melinda was at work, I made a decision that went against every instinct I had about privacy and trust. But at this point, our marriage was already broken. I just needed to understand how badly. I went through her home office systematically. In the back of her desk drawer, I found receipts for restaurants I'd never heard of in cities she'd supposedly visited for business. Hotel receipts for suites instead of standard business rooms. But the real smoking gun was a credit card statement I found tucked inside a business journal. The charges painted a clear picture: expensive dinners for two, luxury hotels, purchases at Victoria's Secret, charges at men's clothing stores. She was spending our money on another man, and she'd been doing it for months. I photographed everything with my phone, making sure to capture the dates and amounts. Whatever confrontation was coming, I wanted to be prepared with facts, not just suspicions. That evening, when Melinda announced she had another business trip to Dallas the following week, I just nodded and asked which hotel she'd be staying at. "The Marriott downtown," she said without hesitation. I made a note to check if her credit card would be charged for the Marriott or someplace else entirely. While Melinda was packing for her Dallas business trip, I called the Marriott downtown and asked if they had any corporate bookings under her name for the dates she'd mentioned. "I'm sorry, sir, but we don't show any reservations under that name for those dates," the desk clerk informed me. Strike one for the Marriott story. That night, after Melinda left for the airport, I started going through her things more thoroughly. In a box of old work files, I found something that made my stomach drop. A business card for Trevor Ashford, Senior Vice President at Melinda's company. On the back, someone had written T, with a small heart next to it in Melinda's handwriting. Trevor Ashford. I'd heard that name before. Melinda had mentioned him in passing over the past year. A colleague she worked with on major accounts, someone who'd been helpful with her promotion. Now I had a name to go with my suspicions. I did what any man in my position would do. I looked him up online. Trevor was 45, divorced, and according to his LinkedIn profile, he'd been with Melinda's company for 8 years. His Facebook page showed pictures from various business trips and company events. In several recent photos from what appear to be work conferences, I could see Melinda in the background. But there was one photo that stopped me cold. It was from a restaurant in Austin, posted 3 weeks ago with the caption, "Great dinner meeting with the team." In the background, barely visible but unmistakably clear to someone who knew what to look for, were Melinda and Trevor sitting at a table for two, leaning toward each other in a way that had nothing to do with business. I screenshot the photo and added it to my growing collection of evidence. The next morning, I called in a favor for my old Army buddy Rex Donovan. Rex had left the military 5 years ago and now ran a private security firm in Houston. More importantly, he specialized in surveillance and investigation work. "I need help with a delicate situation," I told him over coffee at a diner near his office. "Personal or professional?" Rex asked. "Personal. My marriage is falling apart, and I think my wife is having an affair." Rex listened without judgment as I laid out everything I discovered. When I showed him the photos and credit card statements, he whistled low. "This is pretty cut and dry, Francis. The question is, what do you want to do about it? I want proof that can't be disputed. If I'm going to blow up my marriage over this, I need to be absolutely certain." "I can get you that proof," Rex said. "But once you have it, there's no going back. You sure you're ready for whatever we might find?" I thought about Sophia, about the house Melinda's parents had given us, about the life we'd built together. Then I thought about the lies, the deception, and the way she'd been treating our family. "I'm ready," I told him. "Give me everything." Rex's investigation moved faster than I'd expected. Within a week, he had a complete picture of Melinda and Trevor's affair that was both comprehensive and damning. "They've been meeting regularly for 7 months," Rex reported during our meeting at his office. "Always the same pattern. She tells you she's traveling for work, but instead, they're having romantic getaways. Austin, San Antonio, New Orleans. They're not even trying to be discreet anymore." He spread photos across his desk that made my stomach turn. Melinda and Trevor holding hands while walking through downtown Austin. Kissing in the lobby of an expensive hotel in San Antonio. Sharing an intimate dinner at a restaurant that definitely wasn't hosting any business meetings. "This one might interest you," Rex said, sliding another photo toward me. Taken last Tuesday at a jewelry store in Houston. The photo showed Trevor examining what appeared to be an engagement ring, while Melinda looked on approvingly. "He's planning to propose?" I asked, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. "Looks that way. My source at the store says he put a down payment on a 2-carat diamond ring. Scheduled to pick it up next week." I stared at the photo, trying to process what this meant. Not only was my wife cheating on me, but she was apparently planning to leave me for this guy. All while living in the house her parents had given us and spending our money on her affair. "There's more," Rex continued. "I've been monitoring their communications through Trevor's social media activity. They're not just having an affair, they're making long-term plans. Talking about relocating together, combining their careers, the whole 9 yards. What about their work situation? That's where things get interesting. Trevor's been using his position to give Melinda preferential treatment, better assignments, client access, travel opportunities that other employees don't get. Their company has strict policies against supervisory relationships, but they've been hiding it well." Rex pulled out another folder. I also looked into Trevor's background more thoroughly. This isn't his first workplace affair. He was married before, and his ex-wife cited adultery in their divorce. There was also an HR complaint at his previous company about inappropriate relationships with subordinates. So he's a serial cheater. Appears to be. And Melinda either doesn't know about his pattern, or she thinks she's special enough that he won't do it to her. I felt a cold anger settling in my chest. This wasn't just about my marriage falling apart. This was about a predatory man who specialized in seducing married women. and my wife had fallen for his routine completely. I want you to document everything, I told Rex. Every meeting, every trip, every expense. When I confront Melinda about this, I don't want her to be able to deny a single detail. What's your timeline? She's supposed to go on another business trip next week. To Dallas, supposedly. I'm going to let her go, let you gather more evidence, and then I'm going to end this charade once and for all. Rex nodded grimly. Francis, you should also think about protecting your assets. If Melinda's planning to leave you for this guy, she might try to clean out your accounts first. Already thought of that. I've been moving money to a separate account that she doesn't have access to. Smart man. One more thing. You might want to consider what happens with Sophia and all this. If Melinda's planning a new life with Trevor, where does that leave your daughter? That question hit me harder than any of the photos or evidence. Whatever happened between Melinda and me, Sophia didn't deserve to have her life torn apart by her mother's selfish choices. The following Tuesday evening, I was ready. Rex had provided me with a comprehensive file of evidence, and I'd spent the day mentally preparing for what was about to happen. Melinda had returned from her Dallas trip that afternoon, a trip that Rex had documented as actually being spent at a resort in Galveston with Trevor. I waited until Sophia was asleep before approaching Melinda in our bedroom. She was sitting at her vanity, removing her makeup, humming softly like she didn't have a care in the world. We need to talk, I said, closing the door behind me. Can it wait until tomorrow? Melinda replied without looking up. I'm exhausted from travel. No, it can't wait. And you can drop the act about being tired from business travel. Something in my tone made her turn around. For the first time in months, I had her complete attention. I know about Trevor, I said simply. Melinda's face went through several expressions in rapid succession: confusion, fear, and then defiance. I don't know what you're talking about, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. I pulled out my phone and showed her the first photo, her and Trevor kissing outside a hotel in Galveston just 2 days ago. My wife asked me to leave home, I said, keeping my voice steady and controlled. Well, here's your chance. Tell me to my face that you want me gone, and I'll walk out that door tonight. But don't insult my intelligence by pretending this isn't happening. Melinda stared at the photo, and I watched the last remnants of her facade crumble. How long have you known? She asked quietly. Long enough to document everything. The fake business trips, the hotel receipts charged to our credit cards, Trevor's history of workplace affairs. All of it. She stood up slowly, and for a moment I thought she might try to explain or apologize. Instead, she crossed her arms and looked at me with something close to contempt. You had me followed? You invaded my privacy. I investigated my wife's suspicious behavior. There's a difference. This is exactly why I couldn't talk to you about any of this. Melinda shot back. You're controlling and paranoid. Trevor understands me in ways you never could. Trevor's a predator who's done this before. His ex-wife divorced him for the same thing he's doing to us now. You don't know anything about our relationship. I know he's been using our money to fund your affair. I know he's planning to propose to you with a ring he can't afford. And I know he's been giving you preferential treatment at work that could get you both fired. Melinda's confidence wavered for the first time during our conversation. What do you want, Francis? I want you to be honest with me for once. Do you want this marriage to continue, or are you planning to leave me for Trevor? She looked at me for a long moment, and I could see her weighing her options. I want you to leave, she said finally. This house was a gift to me from my parents. You have no legal claim to it. Pack your things and go. I nodded slowly. That's what I thought you'd say. I didn't argue, and I didn't fight her on it. I simply accepted her decision. Fine. I'll be gone by tomorrow. But Melinda, this isn't over. Sophia deserves better than what you're putting her through, and I'm going to make sure she gets it. I turned and walked out of the room, leaving my wife sitting alone with the consequences of her choices. I didn't waste time feeling sorry for myself. The next morning, I packed my essentials and moved to a hotel near the airport. Within hours of leaving the house, I was already executing the plan I'd developed with Rex's help. First, I closed our joint accounts and transferred the funds to a new account that only I could access. Melinda would discover this soon enough, but I wasn't about to let her drain our savings to fund her new life with Trevor. Next, I called my lawyer and filed divorce papers. I wasn't going to wait around for Melinda to make the first legal move. In Texas, the spouse who files first often has certain advantages, and I intended to use every edge available. The custody battle for Sophia was going to be the real fight, but Rex had helped me document everything I needed. Photos of Melinda missing Sophia's important moments because she was with Trevor. Records of her increased travel that left our daughter with babysitters more often than with her mother. Financial records showing she'd been spending family money on her affair instead of on Sophia's needs. The judge is going to want to see a pattern of neglect, my lawyer explained. What you've documented should be sufficient to argue for primary custody. I also made copies of all the evidence Rex had gathered about Trevor's workplace behavior and his history of affairs. I wasn't sure yet how I'd use this information, but I wanted to be prepared. The hardest part was explaining to Sophia why Daddy wasn't living at home anymore. I kept it simple and age-appropriate, but seeing the confusion in her eyes nearly broke my heart. "When will you come back home, Daddy?" she asked during one of my visits. "I'm not sure, sweetheart, but I'll always be your daddy, and I'll always take care of you." Meanwhile, Rex kept me updated on Melinda and Trevor's activities. They weren't being subtle about their relationship anymore. Trevor had moved some of his belongings into my former house, and they were acting like a couple in public. "They think they've won," Rex told me. "That usually makes people careless." Good. Let them get comfortable. When the time comes, I want them completely unprepared for what hits them. 2 weeks after I'd moved out, I got a call from Melinda. She was furious about the joint accounts. "You can't just steal our money, Francis. I secured marital assets during divorce proceedings. That's not theft, it's smart planning. This is vindictive and petty. This is me protecting myself and Sophia. Something you stopped doing months ago." She hung up on me, but I could hear the panic in her voice. Reality was starting to set in. 6 months later, everything had played out exactly as I'd hoped it would. The divorce was finalized, with me getting primary custody of Sophia based on the evidence of Melinda's neglect and infidelity. The judge had been particularly unimpressed with her use of family funds to support her affair. But the real satisfaction came from what happened at Melinda and Trevor's workplace. Using Rex's network of contacts, I'd anonymously provided their company's HR department with comprehensive documentation of their affair, the expense fraud, and Trevor's history of inappropriate workplace relationships. The investigation was swift and thorough. Within 2 weeks, both Melinda and Trevor were terminated for violations of company policy. Trevor also faced criminal charges for expense fraud, which resulted in a conviction and substantial fines. The jewelry store called Trevor to remind him about the engagement ring he'd put on layaway. He never showed up to claim it. Without her job and facing legal bills from the divorce, Melinda had to sell the house her parents had given us. She moved back in with them, a 36-year-old woman starting over from scratch. Trevor's wife filed for divorce as soon as she learned about the affair. Between his legal troubles, job loss, and divorce proceedings, his financial situation went from bad to catastrophic. The last I heard, Melinda and Trevor had broken up. Apparently, when the excitement of sneaking around ended and real-world consequences began, their great romance wasn't quite as compelling. I found a good apartment near Sophia's school and rebuilt our life together. She adjusted better than I'd expected, and having me as her primary caregiver meant she got the attention and stability she deserved. I closed our joint accounts, and I recovered, I told Rex during one of our regular check-ins. Not just financially, but as a man and as a father. "You handled this whole situation like a professional," Rex replied. "Most guys would have lost their heads and made emotional decisions that hurt them in court." 6 months after that, I met Sarah, a teacher at Sophia's school who understood the challenges of single parenthood. We took things slow, built trust gradually, and eventually created the kind of stable, honest relationship that Sophia needed to see. Looking back, I wouldn't change how I handled Melinda's betrayal. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. And when they try to take you down with them, make sure you're prepared to fight back harder and smarter than they ever expected. Sometimes the best revenge is simply surviving and thriving while your enemies destroy themselves.